remember being 18, on the cusp of adult life. I'd like you to imagine the 18-year-old version of yourself in the following scenario. So you spend 2 years at sixth form or college studying for your A-levels. You apply to university in your second year and you're fortunate enough to receive an offer from the course and university that you want. But there's a catch. Like 88.5% of university offers received by students in 2019, the offer is conditional. It only stands if you meet or beat the grade requirements. Come results day in mid-August, a full 10 months after you've received your offer, and just a few short weeks before you're ready to move into halls and start your university adventure, you open that brown envelope, and the grades you get don't quite match the ones you need. The university rescinds your offer. Your whole future is thrown into question. You feel like a failure. You just haven't made the grade. There's a chance that I may well face exactly that scenario in August next year. And yet, in so many ways, I'm deemed to be a catch, the kind of student any university would want. My GCSE results were outstanding. I've been a school prefect and peer mentor, and in July I was named National Junior Young Farmer of the Year. The course I've applied to is politics, philosophy and economics, and I've put my heart and soul into gaining life skills and work experience that will set me up and make my application stand out, including working 2 part-time jobs and reading almost obscenely widely and deeply into my chosen subjects. All of this is obviously reflected in my carefully crafted university application, which, modesty aside, would seem to suggest I'm the ideal candidate. But all of this is not enough to guarantee me a place. By the time I sit my A-levels, I'll have spent 2 years working my socks off, delving deep into my subjects, developing my critical acumen, and crafting impressive essays. But if come exam day, my least favourite topic comes up, I've got hay fever, a cold, or PMT, or the stress just finally gets to me, and just like that, all those facts I memorised just disappear. Then all those 2 years' work will be weighed in the balance against just a few short hours and found wanting. Admit it, how is this right? If you think this sounds like millennial moaning from someone who wants to turn the system upside down just because it isn't fair on me, mum, I completely get it. But it's not just a me problem. The exam system is deeply unfair. Adults and the educated elite will tell you that there's no perfect way to assess students. But as one of the student community myself, I can tell you that the system we have at the moment risks turning us into fact-regurgitating robots, destroying our mental health, and leaving us feeling fragile, bewildered, and disappointed. Predicted grades and conditional offers set us up with false hope, only to dash it at the last minute. Because teaching is a caring profession, and teachers want their students to be able to apply for and receive grades from some of the world's best institutions, they feel pressured into being overly optimistic, and not to say unrealistic, when it comes to predicting grades. So much so that in 2018, only around a quarter of students received the predicted grades that they had been predicted. That's setting the majority of us up for failure come results day. And let's not even get into the time-consuming and expensive process of challenging grades. Wouldn't it be better to have the difficult conversations about grades earlier? I'd certainly prefer to know that I'm only going to get a B in history in October, rather than find out in August, when I've already raided IKEA of kitchen utensils and bought that big winter coat for my chosen university in the north. I admit that students like me, we are just as much as a part of the problem. We're so desperate to get an offer from our first choice union course that we put just as much pressure on teachers to push our grades up as they put on us to work for those grades. But we only need to do this because universities prioritise higher grades above everything else, above personality, talent, ability, work ethic and values. With the number of students receiving 3 A grades or above increasing every year, and almost a third of students receiving A grades in 2021, university admissions departments reduce the pool of prospective candidates by demanding higher and higher grades. To me, this seems counterintuitive. A wider pool to select from would surely lead to a better student body. And while every A grade is identical, every 4,000 character personal statement is completely unique. So rather than deciding on grades alone, surely now's the time to start looking at the individual behind the grades. There are alternatives to the UK system. Across the pond in America, students face a very different reality. If I was an 18-year-old applying to tertiary education in America, I'd be given a prompt and a 650-word limit to convey myself and what's important to me in my college essay, rather than having to write so much about why I love economics. My level of involvement at school, my sporting achievements, even my musical talent, if you can find any, would all be considered in my American institution application. Colleges in the US are neither defined nor restricted by an overarching education system like UCAS, but instead have the opportunity to create their own system, one that is unique to both their course and their location. My quantitative aptitude and logical reasoning would likely be put through their paces in a standardised test like the SAT or ACT, while my academic achievements would be highlighted in a high school transcript detailing classes I've taken and grades I'd been awarded over my entire high school career, not just the 7 weeks before the summer. No system will ever be perfect. That's a fact of life. But I would far rather be assessed through the more intricate and personal analysis of the North American system than subjected to the one-size-fits-all one we have here in the UK. We don't need to adopt the American system in order to reform our own. One alternative is a PQA, to you and me, a post-qualifications admission system. This would involve applying to university only after you receive your grades, rather than having your hopes dashed if you fail to achieve the ones you'd been predicted. Another alternative is the matchmaking system proposed by the Economics Observatory, which involves students putting forward their preferred university courses and institutions looking for a certain number of students. It's a bit like agency work. A university says they want 600 students on a specific course, and the system matches them with the 600 students best suited to it. A matchmaking system like this could eliminate the overcrowding we see on some courses, whilst filling gaps at undersubscribed ones. It's true that students may not always fancy the ones they're matched with, and I'm sure if you've ever used Tinder, you know that sometimes you swipe left for a reason. But it's a practical solution that could well be implemented without restructuring the entire secondary school calendar, meaning students could still sit exams in the summer and be ready to go to uni in the beginning of September. Or we could just scrap the whole predicted grades thing altogether. Cardiff University, for example, doesn't care about predicted grades. It bases its offers entirely on the personal statement. It's probably why it's so popular among my friendship group. A decade ago, exams made up only one part of the UK's GCSE and A-level courses, with results of coursework and modular exams helping to paint an accurate picture of a student's abilities and achievements. This all changed when Michael Gove imposed an all-or-nothing final exam system. I think even by the name, we can tell quite how disastrous that can be. This has massively increased exam stress, damaging the mental health of the UK's young people, to the point where the NHS has a designated page on its website to help parents support their child's mental health at exam time. Supporters of the current system will say that it works. It rewards those who've worked hard and revised relentlessly with the top grades, while making it harder for students to cheat, by, for instance, getting my mum to write my coursework. I'm sure she would, but I don't think I'd trust her. The old system of coursework and modular exams seems to be so much fairer than the final exam system we face. It puts us all under so much pressure, stress, and for many, leads to dashed hopes and broken dreams. Critics of modular exams suggest that they promote a learn it then forget it attitude. And while I accept that for someone taking a biology exam wanting to become a doctor, it's probably quite good if they can remember that the leg bone is connected to the thigh bone, I doubt that at any point in the future I'll need to know that General Cornwallis surrendered to the American Army on the 19th of October 1781 during the American Revolutionary War. And anyway, to a certain extent, the same is true of the final exam, which sees students damage their mental health while revising 2 years' worth of work only to forget most of it just a few weeks after. Coursework, meanwhile, gives teachers a much more complete picture of a student's abilities. And although its detractors will say that it makes it too easy to cheat or plagiarise, no accomplished tutor would really copy and paste something, knowing it could so easily be uncovered in a Google search. So I pose to you this question. Do we really want to create a generation of overworked, exhausted, and stressed out young people? Surely it would be better if the future of our country, and indeed the future of the world, were in the hands of happier, more well-rounded and balanced young people. People who have been trained to work hard, reason and apply themselves, rather than leaving it all to a final flurry on the exam day. If you agree, now is the time to push for change. Our education structures are merely a hangover from the Victorian times. We all like the long school holidays, but they exist because that's when harvest traditionally began, not because it's the best time for an all-inclusive holiday in Ibiza. But just as our summer holiday activities have changed, so have our societal values. I think now in 2022, our education infrastructure has to follow suit. Individually, your impact is limited unless you are Education Secretary, who at the time of writing is Gillian Keegan, the 5th minister in that position since 2020. I'd like you now to imagine a different scenario from the one you had at the start. The system has been reformed. Your 18-year-old son, daughter, grandchild even, doesn't get massively stressed or ill from locking themselves away in their room at exam time. Their coursework and modular exams have already helped determine their grades. You can safely take them to IKEA and buy the stuff they need. Buy them that whisk and spatula you know they're not going to use. And depending on whether they're off to Inverness or Falmouth, invest in a wetsuit or a thermal jacket, because the offer they've received is unconditional. Like unconditional love, an unconditional offer from the university and course of their choice will allow our children to thrive. The person they are, their ambitions and achievements, their personality and particularities, interests and imagination have come across in their application. And that's what they've been assessed on. When you look at this alternative reality, you have to admit it. The current university application system is broken, outdated and unfair. It's time for change.